You'd think I'd know what to do with something this phallic, wouldn't you? And can I just say to you boys, you are going to be ovulating by the end of lunch. And I don't know whether anyone told you, but at a girls' gathering, we always have one sacrificial male. We'll bring him up, we strip him naked, we cover him in whipped cream, and we lick it slowly off, don't we? So let's just kick off and see where we go. I would say that in all my books, I always champion women because, you know, it's still a man's world. But, you know, we don't whinge about it, do we, girls? My motto is laugh and the world laughs with you, cry and you get salt in your champers, which we don't want. But I think we have got a lot to whinge about, starting with being the butt of God's biological joke. My motto in life is that women are each other's human wonder bras, uplifting, supportive, and making each other look bigger and better, don't you think? If I've any gift at all as a writer, it's putting into words what women are thinking but may not necessarily be saying out loud. And also in writing down the way women talk when there's no men around, because it's freaking funny, isn't it? Bit of gossip. I've just recently divorced my second husband, Jeffrey Robinson. We're still great friends, it's all fine. But when I met him, do you know who he was engaged to? Nigella. Oh, yeah. He broke up with her for me, and I can't cook. I use my smoke alarm as a timer. And I must say, the British gossip columnists were awful to me at the time. They were like, how could good-looking, gorgeous, handsome QC break up with beautiful, gorgeous domestic goddess and the daughter of the Chancellor of the Exchequer for loudmouth colonial nymphomaniac? And I was like, how dare they call me a loudmouth, please? This book begins with a teacher. She's driving to school. She's 60-year-old. She's driving to school, and she hears on the radio that a man's been taken by a great white shark, and it's where her husband swims every morning. And she screams down to the beach in her car, and just while she's processing the grief that he's missing, another woman turns up on a Harley Davidson. She's a jazz singer, and she thinks it's her husband who's missing. So then they realise they've married a bigamist, and he's disappeared, and so has all their money. So it's basically an odd couple comedy, you know, where these two women buddy up to travel around the world to get back their money. And well, there's lots of twists and turns I won't tell you. But I decided to also have this great adventure around the world because we haven't been able to travel. I mean, flights of fancy have been all we've been able to take. And I have a travel column in Britain called Adventure Before Dementia. Carpe the hell out of diem. And so I do go, I have had, you know, so lucky I've been to so many great places in the world. So I have woven in quite a few adventures. But the thing I really wanted to talk about in this book is ageism. Because all the books I read that have women my age as a character, they're depressed and they live in a flat and they die of loneliness and get eaten by their cats. And that's not the women I know. The women I know are fabulous and funny and feisty and they've come into their own. I mean, I think for women, life is in two acts. The trick is surviving the menopause, which is hideous, you know, that interval period where you sweat so much it's like the Gestapo's trying to get a confession out of you. But after that, I just think it's the best time of a woman's life. You never hear a man described as mutton dressed as ram, do you? Ever. Right? Exactly. I think women can have it all, but just not all at once. And I remember when I used to have, I think, first of all, working mothers juggle more than, you know, if they're in the Cirque du Soleil. And getting your kids up and out of the house in the morning, well, the Dunkirk evacuation would be easier to organise. And I used to have this argument with my husband, with Jeff, saying, you've got to help me all around the house. And he'd be like, well, I'd like to, but I'm a man and I can't multitask. Have you heard this? This, girls, is a biological cop-out because no man would have any trouble multitasking at, say, an orgy. He would have no trouble at that particular time. He'd be tweaking and twirling and everything else. And it's actually in men's interest to help more around the house because I do all my research in a scientific, in-depth fashion over cocktails with girlfriends. And what I gleaned is that women are just not having sex with their partners because they're resentful and they're exhausted. You know, if you've come home and you've worked all day and then you cook the dinner and you defrost the chops for tomorrow and you help with the homework and you find the lost sports kit and you put the washing on, you do the ironing, you do the teeth nagging, read the bedtime stories, whatever, put the cat out. By the time you get into bed, the one thing you're fantasising about is sleep. And then you get the hand. You think, oh. You know how men make horror movies called The Blob and The Thing? Women would make The Hand. And you think, here's this guy who hasn't talked to me all day or helped me around the house, and he thinks I'm in the mood for love. I'm in the mood for running him through with a carving knife. But he hasn't noticed. No, he's just prodding away at my clitoris as though it's an elevator button he's running late for a meeting. And you're like, take the stairs. I think the hardest thing of motherhood is raising daughters. Has anyone here raised a teenage daughter? Oh my God, it's like living with the Taliban. You're not allowed to laugh, sing, dance, wear short skirts. When my daughter was, she was about 13. They get sort of taken hostage by their hormones, don't they, between about 13 and 19. When she was about 13, I remember I was going out and I had a really short mini on, like a leopard skin pink mini skirt, and I knew she wouldn't approve, so I crept down to the front door, opened the door, and she heard me and she came running behind me and she's like, "What are you wearing? Go back to your room. You're not going out dressed like that." And I remember I said to her, "But surely my legs are okay. I can still wear a short skirt." She said, "It's not the legs, Mum. The skirt doesn't go with your face." Ouch. Low self-esteem is hereditary. You get it from your teenage daughters. For anyone here who does have a teenage daughter who's driving you crazy, I do have a top tip. Next time she hits you and kicks you and says, "I wish you'd just die," just take a big drag on a cigarette and a big gulp of wine and say, "I'm doing my best, darling." Over lunch, we were talking about various adventures we've had lately, and I, because of my travel column, I went to Iceland, where there is a penis museum, which was, yes, it was, what can I say? I bit off more than I could chew with that one, but, and, you know, people sometimes say to me, "Oh, you feminists, you ask for too much, you know, you're too demanding." I think, well, what do we want? We don't ask for that much. We'd like equal pay. That would be great. Thank you very much. We'd like a man who talks to us, because I sometimes think, you know, that, you know, our small intestines communicate with us more often than our husbands. We'd like a man to help around the house, which, as I said, is in his interest because it's scientifically proven that no woman ever shot her husband while he was vacuuming. Excellent. No, I would say to women, though, look, if you're... The thing that marriage suits men much more than it suits women. Married men live longer than single. Single men have less heart disease and mental problems, whereas single women live longer than married women have less heart disease and mental problems. So, you know, it's a great myth that they, you know, we chase them and they finally acquiesce. And if you do have a happy marriage, what a joyful, wonderful thing. But I just think marriages last so long now. From honeymoon to tomb can be like 80 years because we live so long. And if you run out of steam, divorce is not a failure. I think it's just a change. You know, you're allowed to change. But you must stay friends because whatever you loved about them is still there. And that's really important to keep that going.
I think the few guys here are still trying to work out what a clitoris is.
Guys, it's a beach in Greece, obviously. It's in Crete. Yeah. I often think, you know how men will never ask for directions? I think we should also invent as a sort of a genital orienteering device. I thought we could call it the twat nav. That would be great. So they could always find their way to base. Dick Smith's here. He could invent it for us. Although I'm sure he knows the way. Yeah, no doubt. But I went to England for love. I would never have gone there willingly, but actually I've come to really enjoy it. And I'm trying now to spend 6 months in each place. And it's odd because when I first arrived there, I didn't realise that the English don't speak English. They speak euphemism. So when they'd say to me, you need those little United Nations headphones to decode them. So when they'd say to me, "Oh, you Australians, so refreshing," I thought they really liked me, but what that really means is die convict scum, doesn't it? It does. But and you know, first, my ancestors came out in the first and second fleet, so I am like the creme de la creme people, by the way. But what I would say is, what I like about the English is that wit is a currency, you know, and if you amuse them, they actually like that. So even though they were very snobby to me in the beginning, I've been there for so long now, they've kind of got used to me and they've sort of embraced me. So, I mean, I know Prince Charles and Camilla and, you know, I went to the Royal Polo not long ago, and Clarence House could see my name on the list, and they rang me up and said, as you come into the Royal Polo, do you want to present the cups to the princes? And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, all right. And I was standing there with the organiser, and he was one of those English guys who sends his shirts out to be stuffed. Do you know those ones? And he was absolutely horrified that an Australian had been asked to present the cup, and me been asked to present the cup. So I said to him, well, what do I do? And he said, well, as Prince William and Prince and Harry come towards you, you know, just kiss them and present the cup. So as Prince William was walking towards me, I could see he looked so bored, and I said, apparently I have to kiss you. Do you want tongue? And Prince William went, oh, perhaps later. And then he went back and told Harry, and I could see Harry killing himself laughing. This is when Harry had a sense of humour. And he came up and I said, do you want tongue? And he's like, oh yeah, you know. And I jumped up on his back and rode him around the paddock, slapping his ass. And I thought if there was ever any time they were going to put me in the tower, that would be it. But I think they were so happy not to be treated like porcelain princes, you know. And another time I had to go to Buck House for a bit of a barbie. And I was running late, and I suddenly thought, oh, what'll I wear? And I thought, oh, I've got that suit with little corgis on it. I've got this. I had it made when I was doing some promotion, when I was doing interviews during the wedding or something. So it's a little suit with corgis with tiaras with diamantes sewn in, you know. And so I whacked the suit on, got to Buckingham Palace, ran up the stairs, and the Queen was there, and her face was in a rictus of boredom because she just met like 200 people in a row, and poor thing. And I stood in front of her in my suit and I said, I hope you like this suit. I wore it just for you, although I'm slightly worried that one of your corgis might mate with my leg. And she went, and the flunkies behind her, there was this asthmatic gasp of breath, you know. And she just burst out laughing, threw her head back. She said, oh, it was when Philip was alive. Oh, Philip, do come and have a look. Ha, and laughed and laughed. So I thought, you know, what I learned from that is just always be yourself. You know, if someone doesn't like you, well, tough titty. Yeah. Well, you know, are there any surfy girls here? There must be. Did you grow up as surfy girls? Some look at you all blonde and beautiful. Yeah, okay. Well, for those of you who don't know, the guys we grew up with disproved the theory of evolution. They were evolving into apes. And as proof of how sexist they were, they used to get us to cut their names out in paper, didn't they? Sticky tape them to our stomachs and then sunbake so we get a tan tattoo in the shape of their names. So if ever I get cancer, I'll have a melanoma called Bruce. I mean, and they were good-looking guys, but, you know, they kept fit by doing step aerobics off their own egos. They had love bites on their mirror. Put it this way, when they came, they called out their own name. So, yeah. But on that point, after the puberty blues days, I then moved into the centre of Sydney to broaden my heterosexual horizons, trying to find a man in Sydney who wasn't married or gay, or married and gay. It was pretty slim pickings. I went on so many blind dates, I could have been given a free dog. But that was the time I realised, I understood for the first time the double standards about sexuality, which I think still exists today, that a man who's sexually active is described as a love god, a Romeo, you know, a stud muffin, a spunk rat, as we say in surfy culture. A woman with the same sexual appetites is a slut, a tart, a tramp, a mole. And that hasn't changed since puberty blues days. Guys still expect you to be so virginal. They're like, oh, darling, darling, am I the first man to make love to you? To which the woman replies, of course. I don't know why you men keep asking the same silly question. Girls, thanks for being my human wonder bras today and coming out on this horrible rainy day. You're all lovely. I wish I could go out on a girls' night out with all of you. And I'm just going to have to come back and hang out. Let's organise it. And here's to Human Wonder Bras. You know, life, as I said, would be very flat without them. So cherish your friends. Let your bra cups runneth over with love for each other, and keep each other buoyant in these dark, dark days at the moment. So, you know, onward. Lots of love. I'll see you when we're downstairs.
Bookoccino is Avalon's premier bookstore at 66 Old Barrenjoey Road, Avalon, Sydney. Find us online at bookoccino.com.au.